I think the big statements are going to be kept for maybe tomorrow, where the PM is going to address the first mobility summit. But I think over here the address is going on. I've just stepped out when Abhay Firodia was speaking, and I think it's the usual, let's say, demands, I would say rather requests from the industry of lowering the tax rates, which is really, really very high for the auto industry, and obviously the need for proper policy, especially when it comes to EV, because we know that the government went gung-ho on EVs and then has sort of backpedaled on that. So I think nothing too new, to be honest, but I think overall industry is in pretty good health. Last month was pretty bad in terms of sales, but I think that's more of a blip. We had the Kerala floods, unfortunate issue. But yeah, otherwise, I think we've just kicked off the session. Obviously, there's a lot of optimism when everyone gets together, and hopeful of some big announcements, but not heard that yet.
Yeah, I think what the market will be watching out for, Hormazd, is, how do the big automakers continue the momentum in sales month on month into the festive season. We have a late Diwali, we have Diwali in November, and then, the holiday season starts off in December. So the next 3 months would be interesting.
Yeah, I think they will, but I think we've got, in that sense, clear skies ahead of us. We don't see any speed bumps along the way. Of course, the biggest kind of thing that can derail growth is something which is beyond the control of the industry. But I think right now it's looking pretty good. It all also depends on new models which are being launched. That really is a driver of growth. So Mahindra has just launched the Marazzo, which has been met with a good response. It's a tough segment for Mahindra actually, because the MPV segment isn't such a pull segment. So while it may not just fly out of the showrooms, I think there will be a strong pull on it and maybe a sustained pull on it. Tata Motors, again, they've not got anything really new, but they've been doing really well. I think it's a great turnaround story for the PV division. Of course, it's been jinxed with what's happening with JLR, but just looking domestically, they are doing well. And I think overall, we'll even see Maruti, I think, further strengthening its grip on the market as we see more new models coming out. The next one from them is the new Ertiga, which is due sometime in November. So they'll miss the festive season, but I think clearly, it's the growth is now going to be depending on the models and the segments that they're playing in.
I'd be very keen to understand Tata Motors' strategy, as the market is also wanting to hear more.
Well, I think Tata Motors' strategy is right now they've got all their a lot of their products are firing on all cylinders, which is good. The Nexon has done really well. It's got even a 4-star crash rating. So just the overall feel-good factor around Tata products has been the best it's ever been in the history of the company. But I think it needs to be sustained. I think the next big one will be the Harrier, or what they call the H5X. A lot of hope around that. I believe that's also very competitively priced. So I think that will grab a big chunk of the market. But I just think going forward, 2020 will be a challenge for Tata Motors and even companies like Mahindra, because local companies face the most challenges when they have to adapt to the new regulations, because unlike the global companies which have the technology and just have to plug it in to the Indian products over here when they meet the regulation, these companies have to develop them sometimes from scratch. So there will be some sort of disruption as we move forward. And 2019, we're going to see a lot of models which will be axed because they will not meet the new safety norms. We actually broke the story on this channel that the Nano is definitely going to be axed. It will not go beyond October 2019, and perhaps several other Tata products as well, the Sumo and the Safari, because they've not been upgraded. But they'll be replaced with products like the Harrier. So I think it's quite natural, quite an evolution, a bit of a cleanup of the model range. That's what regulations typically force manufacturers to do. So I think right now, just to put it in a nutshell, I think it's going to be great in the coming months for Tata Motors. Maybe a bit of a challenge when we see the regulation changing, but then beyond that, I think everyone's on a level playing field, and there are more products coming out post 2020 which will meet all the new regulations.
I know we are largely focusing more on the four-wheeler names, but what is the strategy that you foresee for differentiation within two-wheelers as the market gets competitive in you know, for Bajaj Auto, I think the magic has worked in terms of their exports, and now with the currency falling, it's going to be a double plus for them. But how do you see the two-wheelers holding their own?
Well, I think Bajaj has always been, as you said, you know, exports has been their big play, and obviously with the dollar strengthening, it really plays to that benefit. Again, Bajaj, I think a big miss has been the scooters. We've spoken about this. That's a segment which continues to grow. I think Honda, again, very strong. I think Honda is going to eventually be the dominant player in the two-wheeler segment. They've got the technology, they've got the appetite, and they just know this market very well. I think Enfield is going to be, we're going to have something very interesting from them when they launch their 650 Twin. I mean, that's a bike which is really going up market. And we've heard news of even Harley Davidson coming down into Enfield's territory. So I think for maybe Enfield, you know, I'm not saying that their current run will be kind of halted, or there'll be some serious challenges to it. But it's going to be quite interesting because Enfield is now going into new territories, or let's say stepping out of its comfort zone. So RE, you know, it's going to be quite interesting to see how they do with their new product, which is expected later this year.
Hormazd, have to talk to you about the latest from the M&M stable, that's Marazzo, and I know you were at the launch. Tell us a little bit more about whether you think this is going to be a big success, and is it really that turning corner that M&M needed after, you know, the earlier hailed product that's Scorpio from their stable, and can it really bring about disruption in the entire MUV segment, considering it's very competitively priced?
Well, I think for one, for me, the big thing about the Marazzo is that it doesn't feel like a Mahindra, and that's actually a good thing. I think this is the first product which has been made with a completely different team, and I think it's a kind of acceptance that, you know, to change the culture, sometimes you have to change the teams, which then in turn make a different kind of products or global products. This is the most global product coming out of Mahindra that I've seen so far, and is really well sorted. Of course, there are a few issues. I think it could do with a little bit more power. Styling is a little generic. It's not got that complete wow factor, but overall it's a very well sorted, a well rounded product, and probably it is definitely the best product Mahindra has produced yet. But it's in a segment that's a very tough segment. It's ruled by the Toyota Innova, and to dislodge it is always difficult. Yes, they can pull some market share, and they definitely will from the Innova, but I don't think this segment has got that kind of emotional appeal where people just go in and they just, you know, it's going to fly out of the showrooms. I think it will be steady sales rather than huge sales, purely because I think that's how the segment is. It's a very rational buyer who comes in there. And talking to dealers, what I've heard is that they've had fantastic footfalls, but conversions are still a bit measured because people go back, talk to their families, and then decide to buy. It's not like a Scorpio owner who's very individualistic. He comes in there and impulsively just buys the car. This is the feedback I've got from some of the dealers as well. But I think overall, I think Mahindra's done fantastically with the Marazzo, and you know, as a product, I was quite surprised as what they've delivered.